Bum 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 ba dum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum ba dum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum ba dum ba dum bum 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 bum.
Wow. Based on that intro graphic, I'm guessing I should probably stick to working on ATS markers instead of graphic design. Those of you that don't know me, I'm Kyle Baker, better known as Lord Kyle of Earth, around ATS Corners. I wanted to put together a quick video for you to cover how to work on ATS markers. I know there's a lot of people out there who think that they're hard to work on, or that they're cumbersome, that they're finicky. All that is probably true. Let's face it, they're not 85s or 98s. But that's not to say that they can't be worked on. So I want to put together a quick video series for you. I'm going to go over my procedures that I use when I am taking apart and diagnosing ATS markers, and hopefully we can take you from having a pile of parts to having a working marker. So probably some sort of a cool fade or effect right here, and we'll cut to the next video section. Okay, guys, let's go over some naming conventions first. I by no means think I'm using these all correctly. But there are a couple different ways to do this, and I want to just be consistent across all my videos. So I'm going to refer to two parts of the marker. You're going to have your upper, which is going to be this whole section where the magwell is, and I'm going to refer to a marker base, which is going to be the actual separate housing where the bonded components are, the ASA, and the trigger assembly. So base component or marker base and upper receiver, or body, I guess is sometimes called. You're also going to notice that there's two versions of these uppers. You have the newer style has just a little hole right here, and you should be able to see that. Most of you are probably familiar with this style. And this is the one that to separate the two halves, you're going to insert an Allen key right there in that hole to press the button. But there are some, and these are older receivers, but not necessarily older bases, where you're going to have a press button style. And this, you just push this little button in and it separates the two. Apparently that design was phased out a while back because people kept hitting the separate button instead of the magazine release, and that was causing some problems. So basic tools here for disassembly, you're going to have a pile of Allen wrenches or Allen keys. You probably have a bunch of these in your toolkit already, or if you bought one of these brand new, it came with it. If you bought a used one, you may have like a box of 1,000 of these that came with it, who knows. But you're going to need some, and the best thing to do is to just go buy a fresh set if you don't have them. The manual does provide what the actual sizes are, but I don't know them off the top of my head. Okay, so first thing to do to separate this is to go ahead and remove your magazines. You're going to slide your mag release. Magazine comes out just like that. You've got two screws on the top, and you've got two screws on each side. So these guys just pop right out pretty quick. And this is going to be true of all ATS markers. That's the beauty of this design. They had one marker base, and then they had a couple different uppers, but it is all the exact same marker all around. So disassembly and maintenance, care and feeding is going to be the same across all of the ATS family. So get those guys out. Next size down right here for these guys on the side. And I do apologize here, guys. This marker is pretty dirty. I was not very good at cleaning it after the last game, so you can see I've got some dried paint on it. This is actually a repair back here with some urethane cement. You can shoot me a message if you have a weird leak right there, or I'll try and cover that in a later video. Most of the time you're not going to have to deal with that awkward little leak right there. So once you have all the screws out, you're going to notice that the sections are still not going to come apart, so you're going to need to take a small Allen key and just put it in that hole, and it's going to push a little button down. I like to apply a little bit of pressure with my thumb just to hold it, grab the grip, and then push off with a magwell, and the two halves will separate out just like that. At this point, you're just going to have a clean upper receiver. You can set that aside, and you're going to have this assembly right like this. So next thing to do, gosh, I had a lot of pain there. Good time to clean it is you're just going to slide the sleeve straight forward to disengage it from the back, and it'll kind of freely rotate for the most part. And you're going to rotate this to where it's 180 degrees, and it should detach clean off right there. So now you have separated marker base, and you have the bolt assembly. Be careful that you don't accidentally let the slide out. I did break a sear one time when one of these slid out on me. So you're going to have this sleeve assembly right here, and when you're looking over this one, what you should see is, and I don't know if I can catch this on the camera, there is a little rubber pad that sits right here. If you do not have that little rubber pad, then you're going to need to get another one. ATS does not sell them anymore because ATS does not sell anything anymore. Fortunately, MagFed Maker and myself have the ability to print them. If you know anyone with a 3D printer that has the ability to print flexible stuff, anybody should be able to do that. Just swing by the RATS project. This one right here was shooting pretty low velocity, and now I can see why, because right here on the bolt, I am missing a bolt seal. It would be the little flexi rubber piece on here, and this one has separated off and flown downrange and probably shot some unsuspecting player. So you're just going to carefully hold on to the bolt, hold on to the hammer, and you're going to release the sear to release the tension. This main spring right here is interchangeable with a phantom, so if your marker is shooting a little too hot and you can't dial it down, or it's shooting too low and you can't dial it up, you can order springs directly from Mike Cassidy over there at CCI, and they will work beautifully. Other than that, your bolt is pretty standard for a Nelson. If your hammer is a little bit unique, you should have a sear that's going to snap in place like everybody else, and you have a separate little guy right here. This is the striker, and there's a little spring here that causes the striker to return into position. If you shake it, it should go back into place. You can see that little spring if you look in through this little hole right here. The spring should be attached. Sometimes those break and get lost. They're kind of a pain to reinstall, but it can be done. So yeah, that's your hammer. Back to the marker base. Things to look for. You should have a little set screw right here holding this coupler in place. This should be able to rotate, but it shouldn't be super loose and floppy. Also, this whole arm right here should be able to, the ram should be able to rotate, and it should be able to move freely in and out without any obstructions. Yours probably does that. Things to look for if you're looking at buying one of these, or if you have one and you don't really know what you have. Right here, this is the cycle assembly. So you have the ram on one side, the cycle assembly is on this other side right here. If this piece is one piece steel, like this guy's is, and I don't know if I can get it close enough to get a good shot, one piece steel, that is the new version. That is the HPA version of the cycle seal. You can also see that this is a stainless steel component that this is going into. That's what you really want to see. Unless for some reason you're just really wanting to collect a CO2 version. The CO2 version, this is brass, and this is a brass coupler that's put on a rod, and it's a several piece section that's stuck together. If you have a CO2 one, they probably leak. I've had about 3 or 4 of those move through my hands. I have one of them that doesn't leak. All the other ones have seals blown, which is basically why ATS moved away from those. Right here you have your valve. This is just a standard Nelson style valve. I have not confirmed that this is interchangeable with PMI tracer parts, but I strongly suspect it. The cup seal definitely is interchangeable. Unfortunately, there just aren't very many of those cup seals laying around, so the amount of support you can get on that is a little bit limited. But at least you have another piece to hunt for. Things to look for. So this rocker should move freely back and forth. This is how your gun cocks itself. And so that should be able to move. This is the reset button. The reset bar is this little piece right here. It should sit behind the paddle. So when you push this forward, it should trip that to move forward. And when this comes back, it should push the whole reset assembly back. Sometimes when they're put together incorrectly, this bar gets put in the front, and then the reset button is completely ineffective. So at this point, I do want to point out, so if you're going to be working on these, one thing that's handy to get is some sort of an on-off. I have this one here. I also have the Trinity screw style, but I lost a piece of it because apparently they're pretty flimsy. But any sort of an on-off is handy to have. And when we are later on in other videos we're working on things, I call this the base kind of maintenance position. You can air this up as it is exactly right now. All of the pneumatics are all contained inside of this unit right here. You have the bolt removed, so you're not going to cause any damage on anything. So you can actually put on an air source. And when you gas this up, you'll see the ram will move, and you can hit the reset button. And this will tend to rotate down, so just keep an eye on it that you don't jam it on there. But this is a good way to check if you have any leaks and make sure the pneumatics are operating normally. If you are hunting down leaks, this is where you want to be, because you can actually get to where everything is. Please do not work on the marker while it's pressurized, but this is the kind of basic maintenance position to start from. All right, so in the next video segment, I think I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how to take this guy apart and what to look for, but that ought to get a lot of you started.